Well, good morning. It's Monday morning, and you have a substitute. So we're just going to go over a couple of problems from the homework, and then we'll do a couple of problems from the classwork, and you guys can get going. Good luck on your quiz after we do our practice. All right, so first of all, we're going to set up, we know that we're on page 26, and we know that we're doing proportions to solve these problems. So we're always going to write is over equals percent over 100 every time we see that. Okay, every time we see with the percent proportions, we are going to use our is over of equals percent over 100. All right, so now we know that find for us turns into what is. Okay, and then 24%, right? So that number is being described by as a percent, so we're going to go 24 over 100 is equal to of, right? 10.5 is being described as of, and 24, right, is a percent. 10.5 is of. What is going to be our x. Is going to be our x. Then we cross multiply, we get 100. X is equal to 24 times 10.5. When we put that in our calculator, we get 25.252. Then we're going to divide each side by 100 to solve. X is going to be equal to 2.25. Now, our therefore statement we'll read, because if we read the directions, it does say to include a therefore statement for each of the problems. So the therefore statement will be 2.52 is 24% of 10.5. All right, now we're done number 3. We'll move on to number 7. Number 7, we're going to set up our is, right, over of equals percent over 100. Okay, so here we're just going to plug and play. We see that 20 is the percent, so 20 over 100. 140 is the of 140. And then what number is what number? We don't know what that number is. So again, we're going to use x here, cross multiply, and we're going to solve. So we'll have 100x again, and then 20 times 140 is equal to 2,800. Divide each side by 100, and your answer is x is equal to 28. Now you always have to give the therefore statement. So you say therefore 20% of 140 is 28. All right, and now we move on to our word problem. This is number 9. It says 90% of the seats on a flight are filled. There are 240 seats. How many seats are filled? All right, so remember when we are doing our, let's move this up here. When we are doing our word problems, is over of equals percent over 100 can turn into part over whole equals percent over 100. Now, the tricky part here is to figure out what's the part and what's the whole. We know that 90 is going to be our percent because it's right there with percent. So we'll have 90 over 100. Then we'll have to figure out if 240 is a part or a whole. It says there are 240 seats, so that means that in total there are 240 seats. So the total will always be the whole, and how many seats are filled means if there are 90% of 100, right? What's 90% of 240? So we need a part of 240, not the entire 240. So we'll cross multiply and we'll get 90 times 240. And it's going to be, hold on, 90 times 240. There you go, 21,600. And that's going to equal 100x. Then you divide each side by 100. and you will say that there will be 216 seats filled, right? So your therefore statement will simply say, come over here, there are 216 seats filled. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, now this is direct translation. This is when we make our words into an equation. So we're just going to translate exactly what we see from words to numbers. So 80, right, we just dropped down 80 is means our equal sign. What percent? So it's going to be X percent of means multiplication. Then we have 300. We're going to write this as 300 X percent. Okay, that's going to equal 80. So right now we want to know, right, 300 times what percent equals 80. So to get X by itself, we're going to divide each side by 300, and 80 divided by 300 is 2.26 repeating. Now if we have 0.26 repeating equals X percent, we are going to have to change that decimal into a percent. So we're going to move the decimal 2 times to the right, and we're going to have 26, right? 0.6 repeating. We don't ever want to leave percents as decimals, so we're going to go ahead and change that into a fraction. So your answer is going to be 26 2/3 percent is your answer. All right, now we have 66 2/3 percent of 2,100 is what number? So we're going to change this into a decimal, right? You always change our percents to a decimal. Well, it's a percent, so now we have to move that decimal twice, once, twice. That's 0.6 repeating, all right? Instead of dealing with that number, we're going to turn that into the fraction that represents 0.6 repeating, and that's 2/3. Of is multiplication, so we're going to do of 2100 equals X. So now we just multiply across. Put a 1 under there. 2 times 2,100 is 4,200. And you're going to divide each side by 3. And you get 1,400. All right, now we move on to our word problem. Our word problem, right, we're also going to use part, right? I'm going to allow you to use the ratio on all word problems. So the proportion, so it's going to be is over of equals percent over 100. But remember we said that can be part over whole. All right, so that can be part over whole, right? We'll cross that out. Equals percent over 100. Now let's look at our word problem and see what we have. The Crown Ice Cream Store gave 5% of their customers free ice cream cones on Saturday, right? That day they had 480 customers. How many people received free ice cream cones? All right, so we know 5% is over 100. That was the easy part. Now we have to ask ourselves, what is 480? Is 480 the total amount of customers they had, or a portion of the customers? Well, I believe that 480 is the total amount, so I'm going to put 480 here, put an X there, and we're going to cross multiply. So we have 100X is equal to 5 times 480, and get 2,400. Divide each side by 100. X is equal to 24. So therefore 24 people got free ice cream cones. All right, last thing before you guys can go. All right, this is just one last review before you guys move on and have to do your quiz. This is the classwork you guys are going to do. We are on page 28. This, number 1, you have to do it proportions, all right? Number 2, you have to do it direct translation. All right, we'll do number 1 first. 19%. 19 over 100, pretty easy. What is x over, right? Look at that, we have of 100 there. So we're going to have 100 on the bottom both times, right, as the denominator. So 100x is equal to 1900. Divide each side by 100. And that one was pretty easy because x is also equal to 19. All right, this one we have to turn into an equation. 8 equals x percent of 32. Remember, we're going to show it like this at first, but then we're going to switch it to x percent, and we're going to divide each side by 32. All right. That should read 8 divided by 32 equals 25. So that's going to be 0.25 equals x percent. And you cannot leave that decimal as a decimal. You have to turn it to a percent. Move it 2 times to the right. You get 25% equals x. All right, you guys, good luck on your quiz. Have a good day.